A video game could be an absolutely chart-topping 10 out of 10 bestseller, but sometimes there's just the odd little thing that you can't help but think should have been tweaked. It's not until a dedicated fan or team of fans has gotten under the hood to correct something that you might not realise what it even was. But then once it's done, it's hard to go back to that pure experience because it just makes so much more sense this way. I'm Cy for WhatCulture.com, and these are 8 video game mistakes the fans corrected. Number 8. An NPC map, Stardew Valley. In itself, it's impressive that Stardew Valley was entirely made by one person, and what makes it even better is just how good it is. Gamers worldwide have put thousands upon thousands of hours into the life sim, and very few have much bad to say about it. However, players did discuss online pretty soon after the release that they wished it was easy to see where NPCs were going to be throughout the day. Modder Baum saw the opportunity here and got to work. There's a lot of characters in Stardew Valley, each with their own benefits and stories, so let's face it, who among us hasn't repeatedly referred to the game's wiki page? The NPC location map does exactly what it says on the tin, no more and no less. With this in hand, players can now see every villager moving around the game's minimap, so they know which corner of the town they have to head towards to find their respectable bachelor or bachelorette. No more running screaming through the streets holding onto that gift looking for your pixelated beloved. Number 7. Grammar of the Path, Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. What might seem minor to some can be a real immersion breaker for others, where you might be able to gloss over or not even see a spelling mistake in a game's text. Some players struggle when they start to find them everywhere. The Witcher 3 unfortunately has a pretty big laundry list of grammatical and spelling mistakes, so much so that one fan took it upon themselves to do something about it. Grammar of the Path, created by Paul R0013, fixes typos, spacing, formatting, and various other inaccuracies within the game's text. Apparently it's over 1,000 lines of language fixed at the very least, which spans the game's dialogue, bestiary, books, and quests. Reading through all the game's script looking for fixes is a whole journey in itself, and surely must have taken hours, all for the effort of a more fluid experience for everyone. This way you'll continue to feel like Geralt the Witcher for the entire story, rather than suddenly being taken out of the experience by formatting issues that remind you that you're just a gamer sitting on a sofa reading text that someone else has written. Number 6. Faster load times, GTA Online. GTA Online is so big and so well supported that in many ways it eclipses the game's single player campaign. When it launched, GTA Online was in a pretty miserable state, however. In all fairness, it was the first time Rockstar had really included such a thing in the series, and GTA 5 had sold gangbusters, so the servers were struggling. Load times could be as long as a rather unbelievable 6 minutes before you could get into the mayhem that was GTA Online. One player, Tossed, found the key to this issue and managed to dramatically reduce the issue, bringing the load time down to 2 minutes. It was still a lot, but it was significantly less, and Rockstar were impressed. They used Tost's fix and handsomely rewarded him with $10,000, and something that he can definitely brag about if he wants to get into game design. More than anything, if you've ever spent some time in GTA Online's world, then you probably have Tost to thank for giving you hundreds of potential minutes of your life back. Number 5. Lua Script Metroid. It's kind of remarkable to think about playing such a game without a map, but if you wanted to go back to the original title, then that's the reality you were faced with. By nature of design, Metroid's planet Zebes is a maze to navigate, but the restrictive graphics of the NES don't help things either, and it is frustrating to feel as though you're getting lost just because a game is dated. Metroid's Lua Script retroactively brings some of Super's tweaks back into the original. The brand new map screen slides seamlessly into this classic, showing players where Samus is in relation to everything else, and it makes a world of difference. Additionally, there's also a Super Metroid style inventory screen which makes swapping between weapon types a breeze. Changes to classics to make them a little more welcoming to play are always a good thing, and Metroid's Lua Script is one of the most needed alterations. Number 4. The Green Glow, Resident Evil 5. Just like any movie, giving your game a certain look or tone is by no means a bad thing. A colour palette of choice gives a title a very concentrated style, and especially in a series or a genre that is oversaturated, can help a game stand out. For example, it may feel very outdated now, but when Resident Evil 4 released, its overuse of browns was seen as gritty and realistic. The West African location of Resident Evil 5 is, for some reason, covered in a strange yellow and green mask. It doesn't necessarily not work, and it was hardly a criticism at the time, but once you play the game without it, it's hard to go back. The no green filter disables this mask and allows players to see the world of Kajuju in all of its true glory. Lurking underneath it is a truly pretty game, vibrant with colour and detail otherwise unseen. It's like standing in front of a painting that someone has worked very hard on and then choosing to wrap your head in coloured plastic to look at it. Honour the work of these designers and give yourself a fresh experience with this mod that probably shouldn't have even been necessary to begin with. Number 3. Winston Zeddemore, Ghostbusters, Sega. If you ask anyone, they'll tell you that the original Ghostbusters are 4 guys. After all, the cartoon and the toy line made that pretty evident. When it came to the films, however, the latecomer to the team always seemed like he was getting the short straw. Ernie Hudson, who has played Winston Zeddemore in 3 Ghostbusters films and the 2009 video game, said that he believed the studio worked overtime to make sure that Ghostbusters was always thought of as 3 guys, referring to his former SNL star colleagues. That was certainly the case with the original film's marketing and somehow crossed over into the 1990 game for the Sega Mega Drive, where only Ray, Egon and Peter were playable. Now, over 30 years later, some dedicated fans are going the extra mile to correct this mistake. The Special Edition ROM hack doesn't replace a playable Ghostbuster with new sprites, instead adding a way to bypass the character select screen to play as the forgotten Winston. Like the others, he has his own unique stats, and when the game is finished, will have his own victory poses and screens. Something always felt incomplete about this title, and adding the Ghostbusters' own everyman only seems right. After all, if there's a steady paycheck in it, he'll believe anything you say. Number 2. Rose, Final Fantasy VI. Final Fantasy VI is the franchise's final 2D entry, and as such represents the apex of that era of the series. From a design perspective, in-game systems became far more complex than anything before. Naturally, this opened the door for plenty of bugs, glitches, and generally exploitable holes in the code. The Rose mod, which stands for Revised Old Style Edition, is a SNES ROM hack that is the work of lots of different Final Fantasy VI diehards. Not only does it consolidate a lot of different bug-fix projects, it also changes up something else that fans took issue with. The English localization of Final Fantasy VI was handled by Ted Woolsey, and being that it was the early days of translating Japanese RPGs into English, he did what he could with such a hefty script and a restrictive interface. However, it was still riddled with its own issues, now dated cultural references and broad changes to plot lines. The Rose version of Final Fantasy VI doesn't throw his work aside, and instead combines the best of it with later official translations as well as fan works to create the most accurate version of Final Fantasy VI's script. Number 1. Alternate Start, Live Another Life, The Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim. The opening to Skyrim blew our socks off in 2011, and even today is still a great cinematic moment in gaming. However, having quite a rigid opening to a game that has so many different ways to play is counterintuitive, and there's only so many times you can watch that prisoner exclaim, "You're not gonna kill me!" and suddenly forget how bows work. Arthmore's Live Another Life mod for Skyrim doesn't just let you avoid this scene, but gives you 16 different openings instead. It's not just generic spawn points, each of them is themed around how you want your character to come into the story. Were you shipwrecked? Are you a necromancer lurking in Skyrim's depths? Your choice affects your tale moving forward as well as your loadout. You can start as a vampire, apprentice of a guild, or even as Eric the Slayer's childhood friend, giving yourself a companion at the start. The Elder Scrolls franchise is all about forging your own path and creating your own story, so seeing a version that allows this from the get-go makes the vanilla game's opening feel strangely restrictive. And that's the list. Let us know what you thought of this video down in the comments below, and whilst you're there, let us know of any other times you can think of that fans have tweaked a good game to be just that little bit better. Make sure you like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe and hit that notification bell. I've been Cy for WhatCulture, and have a good week.